911, what are you reporting?
I got a strange going on out here. Something just killed my dog.
Something killed your dog?
My dog went flying through the air over the tree. I don't know how it did it.
Okay.
Damn it, I'm really confused. All I saw was my dog coming over the fence, and he was dead when she hit the ground. I didn't see any cars. All I saw was my dog coming over the fence.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was?
It was standing up. I'm out here looking through the window now and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
God, I don't know what it is about that 911 call, but it gets me pumped every time I hear the intro to the show. I love it. Welcome to the show, everybody. We are live. It is Sasquatch Odyssey Live. I don't know, what is this, like 4.0 or something like that, maybe 3.0. But I want to say hello to Pat, who's here, and Lesa, our new associate producer. What's going on, Pat?
Hey, buddy, what's up? My favorite part of that 911 call is at the end when the 911 dispatcher says, "Uh-oh."
Yeah, that gets me going every time, man. She's like, "Uh-oh." Well, let's talk to Lesa, everybody. This is a new face, at least on the Sasquatch Odyssey side of things. She's been helping out as the new associate producer over on Wayne's show, The Paranormal Odyssey. And this is her first appearance over here with us to help out with the show tonight. So welcome, Lesa. Thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And on the intro, I do love the uh-oh. Because I'm former law enforcement. Brian, I know you're former law enforcement. We've had some uh-ohs before from our dispatch before.
Yeah, it's definitely, right. I think people actually have heard, maybe we can even ask Denny at some point in time tonight. I know the Kentucky X-Files guys did an actual full show on debunking that as being a fake 911 call. But I know that's not the case, and I need to talk to those guys about it. And that was one of the things that this chief of police that they had on was talking about, was the fact that the dispatcher was acting unprofessional and using unprofessional language like "uh-oh" in the call. And I'm thinking, no, that's what really convinced me that it was 100% real. If you know dispatchers, and you've been in law enforcement, that's 100% an honest reaction to what this guy just said on the phone.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But I digress.
Definitely.
So let's talk to Lesa a little bit. Why don't you give everybody the dime store tour of who you are and what brought you here to us? What is your background? And
well, I was in law enforcement for 13 years and loved that. My partner and I were doing Krav Maga one day and he flipped me. We got our legs tangled and snapped my leg in two pieces. So that took me out of kicking indoors and, busting meth heads. That took that off the table, and then just fell into the film world and the TV world. A friend of mine was a police officer in Little Rock, and they were needing extras on God's Not Dead 3. And he's like, come down and work on this. And that turned into working for 3 weeks on that. And it just started rolling into more productions and more productions. And now I write, produce, and direct, and have always been a secret Bigfoot, Sasquatch, paranormal person. And when you put your call out for volunteers, I'm like, I'm in. I'm raising my hand. I'm in. And I helped another friend of mine do some podcasts before, producing podcasts. So that's basically my dime store version. I live in Arkansas and work in film and television.
We are definitely glad to have you, and I really appreciate you've been a huge help to Wayne already and us just in general. So I really appreciate you being here.
Most welcome.
I'm going through the chat just to say hey to everybody. Super Shanna 81, Gary, Skipper, Sharon. I don't want to miss anybody in chat. I'm horrible at that. So I'm trying to do my very best to keep up with that. So as the night goes along, we may have Denny, like I said, from the Kentucky X-Files. Tyler may drop in, but the main thing that we're here to talk about tonight is something that Pat, I don't know, you called me like 2 weeks ago and we had a conversation about a couple of things, but one of the things you wanted to talk about, which I thought was an amazing topic to cover on the show, was drones and Bigfoot research. Now, I know I've done some research out there. I've looked at some of the videos online, and I see there's quite a few faked drone footage of Bigfoot out there.
Oh yeah. There's some stupid stuff out there. Nobody's done it yet. No one has observed a Sasquatch with a drone yet. That has not happened.
So I want to talk about that because I thought it was very intriguing, because I've went back and forth on this, and I've thought, okay, you and I've had that conversation back in December. We talked about how we're still on the 5-yard line in Bigfoot research, and we've got to start thinking outside the box and going out into the woods. And albeit there's some super great investigators, and I don't want to slight anybody who goes out into the woods and does boots on the ground research, but I think we have to do a better job of saying maybe that hasn't worked the greatest over the last 50 so years, because we're kind of still on the 50-yard or the 5-yard line, and we should be at least over the 50 and closer to the end zone, in my opinion. So drones may be the way to get there. So let's go right into it. Let's talk about, why are you so interested in drones? I know you have a little bit of a background in that. So let's start there, and we'll just see where it takes us from there.
Well, sure. I mean, it hit me like a ton of bricks probably more than 20 years ago when I saw, probably for the first time ever in my life. So I want to say this was late 90s, definitely early 2000s. I saw footage from a police, what at the time, a police helicopter with advanced thermal camera system on it, right? Probably $250,000 FLIR system at the time. And you could tell the difference between, a cat and a rabbit from 500 feet in the air, and a white hot thermal. And I don't know, it seems like it should be a light bulb that would go off over any Squatcher's head. As soon as I saw that, I said, oh my God, that's how you observe a Sasquatch. That's how you find them. Like, that's amazing, powerful technology. Helicopter, advanced system. You're gonna get up in the air and you're gonna see all kinds of things, and eventually them. And then you could just you could film them with this technology. It's amazing, It's like it's a police helicopter, right? I mean, it's also capturing this. It's evidence, right? It's part of the chain of evidence, and it is like, even to this day. And of course, the law enforcement helicopter, the technology is even better now. The cameras they use, they can get stuff that civilians can't actually. That's how FLIR operates. It's like military, law enforcement, civilians. They're making stuff right now that we won't get our hands on for 10 more years. So it's amazing. They see the guy hiding behind the dumpster that, everybody else on the ground's like, where'd he go? Where's this guy at? Right? Man, that chopper sees them clear as day, even in the middle of the night.
Yeah. And that's one of the, that's one of the things that, I'm sure anybody who's been in law enforcement has experienced. We had 2 helicopters in the city of Atlanta, Phoenix 1, Phoenix 2. If they would get off the ground, because they wouldn't fly in a whole lot of situations, especially in the city of Atlanta. But when they were up there and you were looking for a suspect in the bush or behind buildings, like you said, it was that extra tool to help you find them. And I've always thought it was a possibility that we could use something like that in Sasquatch research. A lot of people do FLIR imaging. We've seen tons of, Stacy Brown comes to mind with his thermal image of what looks like a skunk ape down in Florida. And I think there's a there. I just don't understand. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a minute. That may be the first question for you, Pat, is why we aren't doing more of that in the Bigfoot research. But before we get there, Denny from the Kentucky X-Files just joined us. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey guys. Sorry, I was having some audio stuff going on there. I was trying to fix it, and
Yeah, I had you muted because I heard something going on when you first popped on. So
yeah.
welcome to the show, man. Oh, you're
Appreciate
good.
Yeah, what's up, Denny? How you doing?
What's up, buddy?
You're already kind of up to speed about where we are in the conversation. So I guess I'll just ask the question and I'll mute myself and let Pat talk for a second. You and I had a little bit of a context conversation about this on the phone, Pat, a couple of weeks ago. But why is it that you don't think we're using drones more in Bigfoot research and investigation currently?
Well, there's several reasons, and there it's kind of a shotgun pattern of why. I mean, number one, it's not affordable. So to use an advanced thermal aerial system, you're anything worth a damn, you're in the $10,000 ballpark. You know, it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less. You know, just depending on sort of what you're willing to settle on. So it's not cheap. You know, some people are willing to invest a couple of grand, you know, into like the tools they think they need, right, to research Bigfoot, and that's a lot, probably a lot to them, you know. But $10,000, you're talking about like a pretty decent used car. Yeah, so money, like 10 grand's a lot of money to like everyone in the Bigfoot world, right? Pretty much. You know, there aren't many multimillionaires in the Bigfoot world, if any. So that's one reason. The other reason is just pure ignorance. Like, really, honestly, I've been talking about this, I'm not kidding you, for almost 6 years now. I have several videos addressing this, and it's just crickets, dude. 5 years ago, I couldn't get anybody excited about this. Things are changing. People are becoming more aware and more open-minded, but I'm still here to sort of kind of, you know, give the presentation. I'm always willing to do that. So yeah, there's a lot of ignorance and unawareness that, you know, this technology is here. As I was telling you about that, you know, that law enforcement helicopter back, that footage from the late 90s, early 2000s, and who knows when that, you know, footage was actually captured and then, you know, ended up on this show or whatever. That technology, which back then was $250,000, you know, you can literally fly yourself today for about 10 grand, and the technology we have for the drones today is better than what was on that freaking helicopter 20 years ago.
Well, let's go back to what you said a little bit about the ignorance in the community. Do you think it's ignorance of the technology, or do you think it's something else? Do you think people are just resistant to change?
It's both. That too. Yeah. So it is ignorance of the technology. It's unawareness, and there is a resistance because of the almighty, like, personal connection, and that drones sort of take that out of the equation. They take that sort of romantic, go out there and get them. You know, everybody's trying to get them somehow, however they can, really, you know, maybe short of like killing one, right? But get them on film a bit better than the PG film, or we're going to document this and get the tracks and the hair and the blah, 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 blah. It's all personal. It's very personal. It's very romantic. The people listening to these ideas or following some of the researchers, like, that's fun and exciting for them. It's almost like they're there. So it's all this personal. And so that's a hindrance. To me, that's a hindrance, because you're ignoring the one tool that'll actually get it done based on your romantic, personal, you know, thrill-seeking, adventurous ways that you don't want to give up.
I can kind of see that. I talk to so many Bigfoot investigators and researchers, and I get the passion behind that. But sort of devil's advocate there, I don't see anybody who's serious about this and really wants to prove the existence of Bigfoot letting their ego get in it that much that they would want to disconnect with the possibility of proving it and being the person. Because I tell you, whether you're on the ground and beating on a tree and this thing comes out and you take it down with a rifle or whatever the case may be, if you came up with some really good drone footage, in my opinion, I think you would at least be closer to the goal line than we are now. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I understand you saying, that seems to be outside of the cost, that seems to be the biggest hurdle that you feel is stopping that, is the disconnect of the personal experience of the traditional Bigfoot hunt versus finding one of these things with a drone. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, I don't know the right equation to spit out to you about, you know, who's tied to their sort of cherished like wants more than others, or who gets it but can't afford it. Like, oh, I understand that, but I can't afford it. By the way, there's another factor. It does take a professional skill set. It is not. Yeah, if Brian, if I handed you the controller of the drone and said push the stick up and then the drone will go up, you could do that. But if I said, hey, go out there to that peninsula over the lake and do this around it, you probably start flying the drone in the wrong direction. It takes a professional skill set. You have to have three-dimensional awareness and 360-degree geographical understanding, almost like a pilot flying a plane for real. You know, it does take piloting skills. So yeah, a 5-year-old can fly a drone to some degree, especially with a GPS lock in it, you know, to where the thing, you know, won't move at all. If you take your hands off the controls, it'll stay there, GPS locked. But so there's a professional skill set required, not only to understand how to fly the drone and move in three-dimensional space, 360 degrees, but also to understand the camera and what you're looking at on the ground. The difference between a bunny rabbit and a fox, or a coyote and a bear. Those are extra sets of professionalism that then you start getting into understanding optics and being very visually aware and knowing what you're looking at. And so not everybody's cut out for it.
I agree with that. Coming from film and television, you know, we use drones a lot, and it has been such a game changer for, you know, like film and television. But a drone pilot, highly skilled, highly paid. I mean, you hit on every single thing with that, because it is a highly skilled to be a good drone operator and a camera operator. I mean, you really have to put the work in.
And especially for art as well. I mean, then you're taking that whole understanding of three-dimensional movement, and you have to have an artistic flair to know how to bring that out almost emotionally.
Yeah.
You can hear the B-roll music playing in your head as you're filming the B-roll, you know. And I have an artistic background, so like most of my drone stuff is art. You know, I do a lot of art with my drones, but the beauty of that is being able to just to work the environment as if you're a Jedi flying through the air, or a Superman, like you are there. You have to like really put yourself in there as if you're actually flying through the air.
And if you're chasing something, like we've shot scenes before, like horses, you know, running across a field, that takes a whole nother skill when when you are in pursuit of something that is running very, very fast. That's a whole nother skill set that you have to have.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be, especially if you know, like a lot of verticality of terrain is involved. You don't want to go
Mhm.
slamming into the side like a treetop on the side of a mountain that you know what that you had clearance from everything else until you hit that, verticality. um yeah, no, I've done some water sports videos, some chasing boats. You know, and I'm like, if I could chase a boat, I could chase a Bigfoot. Not that it matters. I don't think it ever becomes a question of having to chase. I don't even think that's a thing. But we'll get into that.
Sure. Before we go any further, I want to welcome Tyler from the Kentucky X Files has joined us. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, what's
Hey.
up, Tyler? How you doing, man?
Hey, Tyler.
So, do you guys want to weigh in, Denny? You were kind of shaking your head. Do you have some things to say on the drone subject?
Absolutely. I agree with Pat. I kind of have this stuck in my head. What was it? Albert Einstein said it's not insane to keep doing the same thing, but it is insane to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So
Yeah.
drones, yeah, why not? I mean, we have budgets for TV shows and all this stuff and expeditions. I know of one really expensive one going on in the north right now, and yet no drone footage. I mean, come on, the money's there, right? So let's get some drones out there. I mean, what could it hurt? You know, it can't.
Yeah,
It can't hurt.
generally speaking, I mean, your sentiment is 100% correct. And there's a lot to unpack. It's like, where do you fly? Who's flying? Who is the right are the right tactics going to be deployed? So that's like my first and biggest thing about the drone thing. And again, some of the boots on the ground guys seem to drift towards it's a useful tool for them, for their tactic, to put a tripod in the sky and basically tether the drone to the pace of a freaking person, where like the whole idea of the drone is you can cover a 4 square mile area, I don't know, in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it would take a person to walk through that to cover that same area, take them a day, maybe two.
I mean, you would think that having an extra set of eyes or multiple extra set of eyes, always watching the negative space, you know, I mean, you would think that would be a go-to, you know what I mean? But I mean, there's technology, and then there's banging on a tree with a stick and howling into the wilderness. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm with you though, man. Drones.
No, I don't. The entire tactic needs no other person than the pilot, and maybe somebody there to watch the pilot's back, because they're so hyper focused and it's the middle of the night and you're standing on top of a mountain somewhere and you don't want a bear to sneak up on you or whatever, you know, like, because it is like it's hyper focusing on what you're doing.
Let me play devil's advocate here for a second and say, aren't drones loud? I mean, is that some of the feedback that you may hear?
They can be. They do make what's called quiet propellers, which are more quiet, if you will.
I'd say that's on your high end.
You know, so a new type of propeller that doesn't make as much noise. But my thing is this. So what if they're loud? I don't understand the negative, like, part of that. Like,
I think you get more of a reaction out of the Bigfoot if like it sees that, it's going to be like, what the heck is this thing? It might. I'm willing to spend $10,000 for it to swat it out the sky if I got it on camera.
But here's the thing:
the drone would be anywhere from, like, realistically, I mean, 75 feet above it. So you got to stay above the top of the canopy. You know, so 100 feet, realistically, 150 feet. That's about as close as you're going to get to it with a thermal drone operating in canopy areas that are thinned out.
And I bring that up because the old adage out there in the Bigfoot community, at least that I've heard from multiple interviews, and me personally doing things on my property here, putting up a trail camera, these things that are clicking, I mean, you'd have to be able to hear a gnat fart from 100 feet away to hear this thing clicking. But people say that to me, you know, well, Sasquatch can hear that. Sasquatch can see an infrared, and they're not going to come in an area, because that's the other question we've been asking, or at least I've been asking forever, is why aren't we catching these things more? There's millions of trail cams throughout the continental United States, and I've only seen maybe a couple of photos that I think are authentic, where these things might have been caught on camera. So, as devil's advocate again, I think that's to that point. Maybe if something's buzzing around in the air 75 to 100 feet off the ground, are these things kind of come out of hiding where they're at if they're hunkered down? I mean, we're having a hard enough time finding them now.
So if I'm 75 feet to 100 feet, I'm already observing them. I'm there because I see them. You know, it's because I saw them 400 feet ago. I've already picked them out, and now I'm going to get on top of them and investigate them. And to that, I say, what are they going to do about it? Like, so what if they hear it? I mean, I don't know. You know, the thing I always say, sort of, you know, cynically about it is, what are they going to do? Shoot it down with the laser beams they shoot out of their eyeballs? Like, there's nothing they can do about it except, you know, if it interests them, then guess what? I get a full frontal facial view of a Sasquatch staring right at my freaking camera. Like, that's what I want. You know, I want the damn thing to do like that and show me its face, like, it's in the best profile I can. The other thing, like, I guess people in their imagination say, well, they'll run away. Well, my drone goes, you know, 45 miles an hour through the air, unimpeded by nothing. I'm just moving through the air. There's nothing in my way. I can keep up with anything, you know. There's no animal I can't keep up with the drone, including a Sasquatch, unless they can run 60 miles an hour, which, again, that puts them in some kind of something we don't understand about this world, you know.
Every so many years, Sasquatch gains new abilities, though. If you go back and look, I mean,
well,
every so many years, you know,
that'll be captured, dude. Whatever they do, you know, if they turn around and go, you know, and disappear, well, I just caught that on film. Like,
another 15 years, and they'll be sending their drones to watch us. You just mark my words.
Yeah,
they may already be doing it. Skipper D's got a good question about FAA regulations. I don't think that would be so much out in the middle of the woods where Bigfoot might be. I know there was something like this in Atlanta. You couldn't fly above like 500 feet or something, and certain airspace was restricted. Pat, can you speak a little bit to the FAA regulations and if that would even fly in those areas?
Yeah. So, like, this chart right here tells me where I can fly and where I can't. And yes, so you would find yourself flying in areas you probably shouldn't be. So really, there's no consequence. There's no enforcement. It would take an incident for there to be even like well, you shouldn't have been here flying your drone. And by incident, I mean, like, an F-16 comes screaming through the valley and sucks your drone into its engine and flames out, right? You know, something crazy like that, right? So yeah, you could buy the tool and you could fly it anywhere. There's not much consequence or enforcement as far as that goes. By the way, SARS teams use these drones to find people in those areas who are lost. So, so if you really wanted to cover your butt, you would join up with a SARS team, and that would kind of give you license to practice, if you will, in those areas. But I'm telling you, I mean, the kind of places you want to go and look, there'd be nobody there to enforce it anyway.
Well, it's like the tall one says,
middle of the night. By the way, we're looking at nighttime mostly. That's the idea, in cold environments where you get that contrast. Yeah.
He's saying there's a 400-foot limit. It starts from where you're standing. So if you're standing on a mountain, I guess if you're at 3,500 elevation, 3,500 feet of elevation, you'd get another 400 feet after that. And maybe, I guess that makes sense.
And that's not, that's, so there's, I don't even want to get into the minutia of, there are some states and some municipalities will try and legislate drone laws, but the FAA is the only authority that controls the national airspace. Only the FAA. That's it. And to some degree the military, but they do that in conjunction with the FAA. So the United States military does not own its own airspace over the United States. It's only controlled by the FAA.
Dark Waters has a question, and I didn't say this in the beginning. If you guys have questions and put them in all caps, I'll try to get to the questions for anybody who's here. You want to ask a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Is it possible to program a high-end drone to fly a specific route automatically? I think I know the answer to that, but why don't you take that?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you can give it waypoints. I'm not a big fan of that, just because, like, I want full control of the aircraft, you know. But I guess I could see if there could be a reason why you wanted to program waypoints into a drone to do that, and you say you could take back over at any time. Okay, fine. You know, like, personally, that's not my flavor, but yes, it can be done. Mm-hmm.
This is something you and I talked a little bit about on the phone, and you had some certain opinions about it, but I want to bring it up here on the show because I think it bears the question. We're clearly not getting a whole bunch of scientists out in the field that are having funded scientific research going into the subject, right? The only thing that's really doing that kind of work, and it kind of started with Monster Quest and some of these other shows, is television. Television has tons of money. They are the ones who can really go out and truly make this happen, in my opinion. And the only real show that I'm aware of that's out there even purporting to do that kind of stuff at this point is what's the Discovering Bigfoot, or what's
Expedition
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Thank you. And they have the opportunity, in my opinion, to do some of this. And I don't watch the show, so I don't know if I guess that'd be the first part of the question. Have they used drones on the show? And if not, why do you think they're not using drones?
They have used drones on the show.
Yeah, they have, because they're on set. they're not in places that I would go, and they don't have a desire to go, like, do anything that I would do. They're just trying to make a successful TV show that makes money. That's it.
Well, that's every TV show.
Yeah, right. And so the best way to do that is to, control the narrative. And well, fiction is the most popular form of television and entertainment, period. So that's why, they're not serious about that, man. It's a TV show.
I got you. That's a fair answer. I mean, and that's kind of what I thought myself, but it does bother me in some ways that they're not doing more than what they could, in my opinion, to do that kind of stuff. Because, like you said, I know a ton of people who go out into the woods and look for these things, and they are on a budget, right? They're hardworking people. They don't have a ton of money to spend on equipment. And again, I think that's why we may be where we are in the subject in general, still on the 5-yard line. But, there's also that other question that came out during our New Year's Eve show that we had a while back is there's either one or two things here. Either these things are out there and we're just not figuring out how to find them, or they don't exist at all.
Or in a way that we can't understand, that you just truly can't understand, that they're manifestors. They just, for whatever reason, manifest themselves around people, and that's their only real existence. I don't know. I'm just, like, throwing it out there. I've thought of every angle to look at, and I'm just like, there's a good starting point. And that's the other thing with the drone, in my opinion, man. If it's done right, and it's done enough over a certain period of time, you can definitively say, no, there is no upright walking hominid creature walking around in North America. that's not a thing. The drones will prove that because they will find them if they're there. And that's what they are. Eventually, again, given the right tactics and the right amount of time, it's guaranteed the drones will find them. Like,
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. It's kind of like the shotgun approach that I was talking about earlier with the trail cams, right? I've argued that for years about trail cams. Everybody in the woods that I know, at least around my property here, every one of my neighbors, I found one on the back of my property that borders one of my neighbors' properties here a few months ago on a hike that I had no idea. I'm walking and boom, there's a trail camera right in my face. And I thought, holy shit, I didn't know that was there. Boom, it's there. So there are trail cameras everywhere. There are drones everywhere. You can buy them at Walmart. So there are tons of people out there operating those things. So I guess that would bear the next question for me. And this is for Pat, Tyler, Denny, Lesa, whoever wants to answer. Why is it then, do you think, that somebody hasn't even stumbled upon one of these things and have been able to capture some real footage outside? All the fake shit is out the window, right? So, but there's got to be a there if there's tons of drones flying around in these areas. And I've seen it. You see the videos on YouTube all the time, these scenic, beautiful shots of them overhead in these mountains and these valleys. People are out there doing it, but there's no Bigfoot in the footage. So I don't know what the question there is I guess the question is why, if that's the case.
With drones, that's simple. Like almost no one's looking. So just because there's drones up in the air and they have cameras on them, you have to go looking. There has to be intent. There has to, again, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes a skill set, but it takes intent. You have to go looking, just like is boots on the ground people, right? There's drones flying around, but again, a lot of that cinematic in those kinds of areas, and those drones are 400 or 500 feet, just perusing around the mountains. Like they're not looking for Bigfoot. So it's no surprise to me that one hasn't accidentally been like conclusively filmed, because it's hard. It's going to be hard enough to get conclusive footage, which, by the way, it's going to have to also be repeatable. Even if it's conclusive, you got to do it again. It has to be done more than once. It's all about intent and tactic. You're purposely looking. And again, this isn't daytime stuff. This is nighttime advanced thermal. So
Denny, you're sitting in the back of the class with your hand up. Did you have something to say on that subject, sir?
Well, my conclusion would have just been that there's not as many out there to film. It's a lot of cameras looking for something that there isn't very much of. Josh, the other guy on our show, made an incredible point to me and Tyler the other day. And he says, I can get online and I can Google search the rarest animal in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And Google has images of it. Lots of images. And this is the rarest creature in the world that we know of, I guess.
Yeah, it's probably small.
What my thought is that if that's possible, and there's this many people looking, boots on the ground, drones, trail cams, all this, maybe there's not as many of them out there as some would like to believe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, sure. That's solid logic.
It's harder to find something if there isn't very many of it. There's people over in Australia right now that are Bigfooting out the thylacine. You guys are familiar with the thylacine, right? The Tasmanian tiger. Mm-hmm. This was an animal, went extinct. Now it's a cryptid. So I don't know if that's a demotion or what. I don't know how that works, but he's getting spotted. People are seeing them, but not on trail cams and not on drones, not on cell phones. They're just seeing them. So it's, again, I'm like, well, if it's there, and it might be, maybe there's not that many. I've always had a problem with the population numbers is my big thing.
Yeah. No, yeah, and that's its own discussion for sure. But my thing is this: is that trail cameras are reactive and stationary, and I'm a flip the script kind of guy. Drones are proactive. Drones are on the hunt. They're moving. Again, man, you could take in one night, if you multiple batteries and you spend 6 to 8 hours there, you could literally cover a 14 square mile area of remote terrain, man, where there are no people, or is very unlikely certain areas of that, very unlikely there would be people. And the power of that versus a trail cam or 10 billion trail cams in just one drone, it's much more powerful. And it's way more powerful than anything that anybody could do, no matter how badass they are on their 2 feet. And that's really, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's undeniable, the power of this tool. And, and I tried to explain as best I could why they're not being used more, and which is money and other things. I don't have one, man. So let me be clear. I do not have an advanced thermal drone because the damn thing costs $10,000, man, and I can't afford that. Like, like it would take me years of like really hardcore saving up. Like you're probably familiar with this guy, Brian. Being like Clark Howard, kind of saving up money. Yeah, to ever even get close to that, man. So it's not something I can afford. I'm not doing this. I wish I could, but I am trying to advocate more use for it.
Well, I think it just goes into the bigger scheme of things. For me, starting off in this year, it's been sort of a theme for me since we had our conversation back in December, is I think it's time that we as a community and investigators, and again, I don't go out in the woods and spend a ton of time looking for Bigfoot. I do all of my research behind the microphone, collecting stories for the most part. But I think as a whole, as a group, I think we have to stop for a second, just take a breath and collect ourselves and say, look, guys, we've been looking for this thing for 50 years. Let's just give a nice fat round number of 50 years. It's been longer than that because there's anecdotal stories going back for centuries. However, let's just say 50 years with the technology through those last 5 decades. Every year, every decade, they've used the technology at hand. And the best thing that everybody can point to is the Patterson-Gimlin film from 1967, right? Yeah. So if that's the case, why can't we as a community, and that's sort of my charge for everybody and sort of my challenge, is to say we have to stop thinking in 1967 terms and start thinking in 2023 terms. What are we talking about? What are we really dealing with? And why have the tactics that we've been using for the last 5 decades produced anything other than the ball sitting on the 5-yard line and everybody on the sidelines going, why isn't the ball moving? So I think we really have to be honest about what we're talking about here and start figuring out some things that may work better. And drones may be the first step to that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that just in general? Not just drones, but just in general about the Bigfoot community and the way we've been approaching the subject. It's clearly not working because we don't have one, right?
Yeah, you definitely like hit the head of the nail there. It's like, just like Denny was saying, it's like we need to try to let's mix it up here. Like we're not getting good pictures or any of that, no video. It's like, come on, just let's try to figure out something. Like, let's stand out in the woods on our head for 10 minutes. Maybe that will change things. I don't know, but that's kind of like the thing. You gotta try stuff. I hate to say this. Me and Denny went to a kind of a get together one time, and somebody asked this question about the technology that they were using, thermal and drones and stuff, and he wanted to kind of join them and try to help him out as their tech guy. And they kind of shot it down, saying like, "Oh, you will never find a Sasquatch that way." I was like, "What? Like, how do you know? You don't have the answers.
See,
like, we don't have all the
that
books."
ego, dude.
Yeah,
There's
it's
that ego.
I hate that. Like, just like in music, there's always gatekeepers, and if you're not a part of this type of thing, this pattern in that, you can't win. Like somebody is going to say, "Oh, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong." More and more and more.
It's a big old exclusive club.
Yeah.
None of us are in it.
I hate to say it, but I love the community when we come together and we talk, we throw out theories and ideas, but man, we are brutal with each other. If you say one thing out of line with somebody, they're like this, "Oh, get out of here. Get out of here." Nope.
Yeah, I'm experiencing it now. I mean, I have branched out into other things, talking about UFOs, talking about just wilder things in the paranormal. And I'm bashed in comments and people leaving Apple Podcast reviews about how bad my show sucks because they tuned in to hear about Bigfoot and I'm talking about freaking aliens. And I'm thinking, well, dumbass, do you know that the aliens might be controlling the Sasquatch? That's what I'm talking about. I don't know that for a fact.
You know what, Brian? We actually heard that it was lizard people that escaped the Earth before the meteor into another dimension, and they're controlling Bigfoot from. I don't know the logistics. I'll be honest. I don't know exactly how they do this, but it's through portals. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't think the person who told you that knows the logistics of it either.
And I know we're joking at this point, but it just infuriates me because I saw something online today. You know, somebody did a meme and they were talking about Bigfoot and Dogman. And it was talking about Bigfoot people and Dogman encounters. And people were saying the meme was basically in a nutshell, you know, Bigfoot is real, Bigfoot exists, but Dogman is absolutely fiction and aliens are absolutely fiction. So I think people get so much ingrained in their brain that it's all about Bigfoot and that's the only thing that exists outside of other known realities. And I think you have to open up your mind and listen to other things because there could be more to this than what people think it is. It may not just be a big dumb ape walking in the woods, avoiding us for the last 100+ years or more.
It's definitely not a big dumb ape. It ought to be in a zoo. Yeah.
Right. So it could be a really big, smart ape. But even that, I think you have to start listening and thinking more in line with there could be something else to them. And it could just be super abilities, right? That's one of the things. It's not necessarily supernatural. I got that. I stole that from Doug Highcheck. I'll send you a check, Doug. But it's a super ability maybe that these creatures have. It's not necessarily a supernatural thing. So, but a lot of people aren't even open to that. And I've always been open to that discussion. You know, I had Ron Moorhead back on the show recently, and Ron has some really far out there theories on Bigfoot. I don't necessarily agree with everything Ron says about Bigfoot and this quantum entanglement and all these things that he gets into. But you know what? I listen to what he has to say, and I think that there's a possibility of there being a there because otherwise, to your point, Pat, if it is an ape in the woods, I think we would already have one somewhere. And we may have one in the bottom of the basement of the Smithsonian right now. We just don't know about it. But in general, I think this would be a recognized species if there wasn't more to them possibly than what everybody lets on. And I went on a rampage here, so I'm going to step off the soapbox and I want to say, hey to Chris, what's up, buddy? Brian, anytime somebody brings new evidence in, it's automatically torn apart. So why would anybody want to speak up? I think that's a good point. That's something that I've talked about before. I had a really good interview with Jake from Wisconsin a couple of days ago. That show's going to air over the next couple of weeks. People have asked me about it. Jake sent me some videos and some photographs, and he sent them to me on Messenger, and we went back and forth, and I ended up posting some of the videos. I asked him if he was okay with me posting them on social media, and I did. I posted the first video. It's called Bigfoot Filmed in Wisconsin with a question mark. I didn't make a definitive statement. I just said, is this a Bigfoot? It's at 333,000 views on my TikTok as of today. And everybody has an opinion on this video. And Jake was very sincere when he sent it to me. He said, I filmed this thing. I was 25, 30 feet away. And this is a Bigfoot. I'll be honest. I don't necessarily see what Jake sees in the video, right? We had a conversation about that the other night. And I kind of grilled him on some of those things. But to Chris's point, there's been tons and tons and tons of comments. I think it's been viewed 15 or 20,000 times on my the Paranormal World Productions Facebook page, and tons of comments. Either it's I see it, it's there, it's 100% a Sasquatch, or he is 100% batshit crazy and I don't see anything but leaves and trees. So it's always that back and forth, right? And that's what you have to deal with. And I explained that to when Jake came on the show the other night. I said, look, dude, I don't push people with their anecdotal stories because you're telling me your experience and your encounter. But when you start taking photographs and you start presenting videos and making definitive statements that you have filmed a Sasquatch, or you have filmed a humanoid creature, or you have filmed a dog man, people are going to push you on that point. So I think anybody out there, to your point, Chris, yes, even if it's good evidence, right? People are going to push you because people in the Bigfoot community and in general are cynical, I think. Most people are. You know, I'm skeptical. I'm not cynical yet. But I think when you start talking about video and you start talking about pictures, and that's kind of where I am now. If you send me something and say, hey, I filmed a dog man, and I don't see a dog man, I'm probably going to ask you some follow-up questions because there's got to be a there, right? So I see you guys. I mean, Pat, what do you think about evidence?
Let me be very clear about something. Right. So if an advanced aerial thermal drone gets on top of a Sasquatch and gets to film it, it'll probably be able to film it for, anywhere. Hopefully it won't be a weird coincidence where at that moment the batteries are getting low and you have to bring it back. Chances are it'll be able to film it anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour. Now, that's one hell of an observation being filmed. I mean, this is blowing the PG film away big time already, as far as like that amount of time and the different angles you're going to get. So you're constantly going to be looking for different angles, that kind of stuff. So you take that kind of footage, man. If I went and could get that kind of, let's just say, that footage on top of a real Sasquatch tomorrow night, it ain't coming to YouTube. It ain't going to Facebook. None of that's going to happen. This is next level stuff, not just with the technology being used and the skill sets being used to get it. The actual footage itself is next level. This isn't the YouTube games. This isn't the Facebook games. This isn't, any of that stuff. This is going straight to the right people. And there's NDAs involved. I'm taking it to all the right professionals. I'm going to take it to, Meldrum's going to see it, whatever. I might vet it to my friends. Again, NDAs are going to have to be signed. This is big time stuff. This is not little petty Facebook. Is it a hoax or is it not a hoax? Like all the dumb stuff that just cycles through every week. No, this is going to the right people. It's going to go to zoologists. It's going to go to primatologists. It's going to, I'm going to get Greg Nicotero on the phone, man. He's going to see it. Like a special effects artist, covering that base. Because what the drone will capture 100% is that it's not a dude in a suit. You can't fool the drone with a suit when it's 38 degrees outside in the middle of the night. You're going to see a guy in a suit. If it's a guy in a suit, that's what you're going to see. If not, then it's something else. And so I want to be very clear about how conclusive actual on top of one footage will be.
But do you really think it would? Do you really think that's the case, Pat? Do you think that people, even after all that, would ever be okay with just accepting that footage is real?
No.
Yeah, when it's validated and there's a consensus behind it, absolutely. Not unlike the PG film. Unlike the PG film where you had professionals outside the Bigfoot world at the time validating it as not a guy in a suit. You've had special effects people since then validating it, not a guy in a suit. And then you have other people saying that it's probably a guy in a suit, even though they've never proved that. Right? So it's this PG film's this 50-50 thing. But what if it was 90-10? What if it's 80-20, 75-25? What if there was a consensus formed because an actual Sasquatch was filmed and there was, again, 15 to 30 minutes, man. You talk about over analyzing every little damn thing about it, man. The professionals will sort that out. Not the Bigfoot people. Not trying to go, hey, Bigfoot world, what do you think? Is it real? Is it not real? Screw that. They'll see it eventually, right? They'll see it eventually.
What if
But-
Todd Standing filmed one with a drone tomorrow? What would you say about that, Pat?
If Todd Standing was, using an advanced aerial thermal drone and he got footage, I would analyze that footage and I would go along with all the proper people that are, capable of analyzing that footage. If there was a consensus formed and I was a part of it, then yeah, I'd go with it. I'd be like, wow, Todd got lucky. Like, I hear you, dude. It's an interesting question, right? But hey, if Rick Dyer drags one into town tomorrow, so be it.
Touche.
Right?
Touche.
I mean, so be it.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying and I really, at the end of the day, I wish that we would just get to a point, like I said. I think that's really the bigger question, more outside of drones or just anything in particular, whether it's infrared or drones or whatever the case may be. I think the bigger question at hand is, are we as a community of investigators and just people who are interested in the subject, and there are literally millions of people that are into the subject, are we ever going to get to a point where we're willing to come off of the soapbox a bit and just accept that what we think or what we've thought for all these years may not be exactly what it is, and look at some different ways to go about the research? And I guess that ultimately has to fall on the people that are the boots on the ground and actually doing the research for that to happen. And to your point earlier, I don't know if ego or whatever the case may be that prevents that is ever going to change, but I just don't see this progressing anymore. It's like 10 years from now, we'll be sitting here in 2033, a lot older, talking about the exact same thing, wondering if we're ever going to get a definitive answer on, for some of us, are these things real? And for the rest of everybody who already believes that, what are they and where do we go from here? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Chris has a really good point. Chris Jones, he says it's going to take a body to finally to put it all to rest.
Yeah, I agree. I don't, to your point, Pat, I think you're right. I think if you get a 90-10 video of one for 10 or 15 minutes on a drone running from trying to get away, and it's clearly not a guy in a suit, whatever the case may be, I think you're going to be a lot closer to where you want to be. But ultimately, I think the person with the drone is going to have to attach a rifle to it and or send a team in to take this thing
is illegal,
down.
by the way. That is illegal.
I've seen the videos. I know people do it.
No, it's been done. It's been done. Yes.
Yeah, it's already been brought and somebody has already done it. But to Chris's
well, yeah,
point,
it's called a predator drone, man. I mean, yeah, right. I mean, that's what I'm like, dude. If we actually got the U.S. military involved, like they could kill a bunch of them pretty quick. Yeah. The first thing they would use is aerial assets. So, I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something very important, Brian.
I'm sure it'll come back to you.
No, I think it's a bridging of the gap. So now we just have a huge disconnect, man, with science or the scientific community, scientific professionals. I'm of the belief that the Bigfoot phenomena needs more investigating by scientific professionals, not amateur Bigfooters. No offense. Some of those guys have amazing skills in certain areas, but they're not eDNA collectors. They're just not. They never will be. Neither am I. I'll never be an eDNA collector. So I'm trying to, I think the biggest way to move the ball down the field is to provide observational footage of an actual freaking Sasquatch. It's kind of a no-brainer. Scientists would be able to vet that themselves and come to the conclusion, wow, there's something here. And man, once you get those guys into the oh my God, there's something here category, and some of them are halfway there. They just need that push, especially the younger generation. Now that the old guard, the staunchy people are gone, you know, then you get real funding. You got real professionals doing it, And again, man, so what does that do to the boots on the ground Bigfoot guys who've been struggling all these years, They're gonna get a little butthurt about that because now they feel like their territory is being invaded by, like people who never believed or whatever, right? So there's this weird psychology to it.
I mean,
I'm
Pat, if
actually
you
trying to
discovered
bridge that
Bigfoot
gap.
tomorrow, you know how many Bigfooters are going to go into a deep depression the next day? I mean, think about it. It's solved. Shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which that in and of itself is weird. It's like,
Yeah.
why
Then
is
I would
that?
say even say that they would deny it too. They wouldn't cope with it. They're like, it's fake. It's fake.
Yeah.
Even if it was 100% real.
Yeah, and that's it, right? Some people will do that. So I'm not trying to present anything that will convince every single person in the entire world from here to China that, because of this thermal drone image, in filming is boom, there you go. Behold, Bigfoot. No, I'm just trying to convince the right people. And then eventually the world can make up its own mind. But we see how that works,
Slim has a question. Lisa just pointed out, so I wanted to bring it up. I think it's a fair question to ask. Out of these 5 people, have any of them actually seen a Sasquatch? Y'all want to go around the horn? I'll start by saying no. Outside of the one on my logo, I have not seen a Sasquatch.
No, I've never seen one.
No.
Nope.
I heard something weird 20 years ago, but didn't see a thing. Still haven't.
Right. Yeah.
So there's your answer, Slim. None of us have actually seen a Sasquatch, and none of us have even played somebody on television who's seen one. So we're not purporting to be experts on anything here. Let me say that. And if we make any sense at all, it's probably by accident. But no, I don't think any of us have seen a Sasquatch. And that's part of the point that we're actually talking about, I think, is to the greater point is I have had experiences very much like Denny, and I know Lisa maybe has even had some experiences. Pat has certainly had some experiences he can't explain. I think that's really the larger question here is we're all trying to seek those answers, and we're having these conversations and doing these shows to hopefully get a little closer to some of those answers. I know that's why I started my show. That's why I collect these anecdotal stories from the people that I talk to on the show, is to get a little bit from each one of those that hopefully gets me a little bit closer to the goal line, even if it's just a personal victory for me to answer that question for myself, because I wake up every day and say, do I believe any of this at all? And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I've talked to plenty of people that have seen these things and they're 100% convinced that they exist. And I'm pretty much there just because of the compelling stories that I've collected over the years on this show and had face-to-face conversations with people that are still shook up 35, 40 years after their encounter. Exactly. So by no means am I trying to diminish anybody's anecdotal account by saying I'm not sure that these things are real, but I don't think I could properly do my job as a host of the show if I were 100% all in on the Bigfoot thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes for a good host.
That's why I always refer to it as a phenomena. I mean, that's ad nauseum. People are probably tired of me using that word, but that's what it is to me. It's 100% real phenomena, but we don't know what it is. It's either undiscovered upright walking hominin or it's not. It's something else. And that something else is still a big question mark. At least an undiscovered upright walking hominin, that's not a question mark anymore. Once you show that's what it is. That's what they look like, so they look like primates, right?
Yeah, Joe from Western New York Bigfoot Investigation. What's up, Joe? Joe is one of those people that does not need any convincing. Joe has seen one of these things and he is 100% convinced that they are real. He doesn't have to have anybody telling him anything otherwise. And I really wished I was in that camp, but the rest of us still have to have these kind of conversations to say, you know, could be, could not be, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I want to see one. The only time I ever want to see one, Brian, is on my screen. That's it. And what I mean is, yeah, on my screen attached to my controller on my advanced thermal drone. That's the only time I ever want to see one.
Yeah, I've said the same thing. I wouldn't mind seeing one crossing the road at 60 miles an hour, and I might slow down and wave, and then I'd be out. But I definitely don't want to run into one of these things in the woods. We're an hour plus in. I don't want to keep beating the drone thing to death. I think, Pat, I mean, unless there's something else you want to add to that, I think we can kind of move on to more of a wrap up free for all and talk about some other things before we close out. But I want to give you the last word on the drones. I guess a question for you is, you're passionate about this. You obviously, you know, none of us have the 10 grand laying around to go and buy one of these drones and go out in the woods and find these things. What do you think? Hello, puppy dog. What do you think is the next step in figuring this out? Do you think it's going to be a television show? Do you think it's got to be science that comes in and pumps some money into this? What do you think of the next steps, and how do we get there and find Bigfoot with a drone?
Yeah. So, currently, there are only 2 people that I'm aware of using advanced thermal drones to actively try and observe a Sasquatch and film it, and that's Randy Harrington. Come on, Pete, and come here, Pete. Randy Harrington, and a guy whose name I can't remember, but he's affiliated with Matt Moneymaker. So Matt's starting to get interest in this finally, although he calls it drone squatching, which is just stupid and silly. I hate that terminology. That makes it silly and kind of like almost unimportant. Like when you start throwing like television terminology into it. Anyway, so I only know of 2 people doing it. That's not going to be enough, and it's certainly not going to be enough if, you know, again, you know, I'm not sure that they're using the right tactics and all that stuff. So that, you know, what it's going to take is, you know, a very determined individual or group of people spread out. The group of people would have to be spread out at least regionally, being extremely focused. I mean, I'm talking about going out 4 or 5 nights a week through the entire canopy down season, in the right areas, or the right kind of areas, constantly looking, burning through 8 batteries a night. And eventually, dude, it'll happen. I promise you. So I'm just here to give you a promise and a guarantee that if some kind of real effort is ever put forward with thermal aerial technology, I guarantee you'll get a result if there's an upright walking undiscovered hominid living in North America. You will capture them on film, and you'll do it more than once.
Well, there you go. You've thrown down the gauntlet. There are people out there. You said Matt Moneymaker. There are plenty of people. I'm not going to call anybody out by name. I'll just say this in general. There are people who have done very well in the Bigfoot world with their television shows and other things. They've made millions of dollars off of this. And most of it has been in the hunt for Bigfoot. So some of those people could go out and do those things. So, you know, if you're out there and you're listening and you really want to find Bigfoot, you know, kind of put some of your money where your mouth is and drop a couple of 10 grand on a drone and put together a team and go out and really find these things. Because
no, Matt's interested. I think he's interested as a legitimate tactic, you know. I know that much. But yeah, I know. So as far as me starting a GoFundMe, like honestly, you know, again, I think it would just be crickets. Like I don't have enough reach to a big enough audience to like make that viable, you know. So I think if I did do a GoFundMe, I'm not sure what to offer back to the people that would want to invest in me. You know, I'd have to think that through and really give people something of value to invest in, you know. But yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I could go on to GoFundMe tonight and create that, and
Just
you
saying,
know,
you're offering to show him a goddamn Sasquatch.
right.
You know what I mean? Like, get him a drone.
Sure, sure.
The
And I have
hell?
to make a very compelling case as to why and how this is the way to do it, you know. And I'm not against that, you know. I guess my fear, honestly, is because I hate to fail at anything. My fear is I throw it out there and it's, again, it crickets. I'm trying to get 10 grand, you know, and it gets up to $200 and dies. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that didn't work, you know. Like,
You start the GoFundMe, I'll donate, and I will start I'll put it out there to my audience and we'll see if we can get it funded for you, Pat. Let's go around the horn and kind of close out the drone thing. Lisa, what say you about drones? Do you have any words of wisdom for the audience before we head out of here on drones? What is your thought about what we talked about today?
Well, no, I think the drones is a very good idea. I think that, I mean, because you see so much. I mean, I've seen it from film and television. The shots that we get from drones are spectacular. Um, and I don't think you need a $10,000 drone. I mean, I've got a drone pilot that doesn't have a $10,000 drone, and he gets phenomenal footage. So I do think the drone thing is very interesting. My question, I'm just going to throw this out here. The guys that are down in Texas, North American Wood Ape Conservancy, they're
right.
doing a lot of interesting stuff. Have they not thrown some drones up in the air? I know they did the tagging thing, but have they not? Do y'all know if they've thrown any drones
I
up in the
think
air?
I want to say maybe. I think that they've tried drones a couple of times. There's a lot to unpack with that question.
Okay.
I mean, they've been down there in that area X for 20 years now,
Yeah.
and that's quite an effort. And they got nothing out of it, and so I don't think that the drone thing is really a thing with them right now. Unfortunately, I mean, they spend most of their time out there in the summer when the canopy and the underbrush is at its absolute
No,
thickest.
I thought they were year round now. That they have
No,
people down there
they
year
might
round.
have. They say year round, but they don't. Their efforts are, late spring through summer,
Mm.
early fall. That's their real effort. Um, even though they might, some people might go out there in the winter. A couple of you here and there. If you're gonna look for, if you're gonna use the drone, it has to be in the wintertime when the canopy's down.
Yeah.
Like even here, like in North Georgia, I say it all the time. I'll say it again. It's like in the summer, it's Vietnam. In the winter, it's Hiroshima. That's how huge of a canopy drop we
Well,
have.
Arkansas is the same way.
Right. So it does no good. The thermal drone is not very useful in the summer because the canopy is just way too thick. You got it. Once the canopy's gone, you can see all the way to the ground. You can find every fox and rabbit and bear from, up and down these mountains around here. But yeah. So yeah,
That's a good question.
that
I need
answers
to
your question. Yeah.
I need to reach out. I haven't talked to Matt Pruitt in a while. I'm going to give him a call before we. I'm actually going to invite him out to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference this year. Hopefully, he can join us in July, and that'll be a question that I'll ask Matt when
Yeah,
I
know
talk.
Matt. I know Matt.
Very good dude. So,
So,
Denny,
yeah.
Tyler, do you
Yeah,
guys
you
have?
could ask him. He would know how much how often they've used them. I thought I remember some kind of statement that they have put thermal drones up, but I'm like, that's all you should be doing. That's it. Like you should be on every high point that you could get to and sending out fleets of thermal drones if you think there's Bigfoot there. Because if they're there, you'll see him with the drone. Period.
Fair enough. Denny, Tyler, do you guys have any closing remarks for the Kentucky X-Files that you want to share with us?
I'm gonna have to throw my hat in with Pat, man. I think drones, do it. Send them out.
Send them.
You know what I mean? And the reason I think so is, I mean, he made a lot of good points, but aside from that is we've been doing the same shit for 50 years. I mean, let's do something different. You know, I mean, well, you got different camps saying like, well, on one side it's, you know, it's a spiritual thing, and you know what? I find that poetry is beautiful to me. I love that, you know. And on the other hand, you got somebody that tells me that it's an animal and it's territorial and it's doing all this crazy stuff up north. Okay. And then they tell me that it builds structures. And I'm like, okay, you just told me it was a spirit, a person, and an animal, and the same three things. Send the drones. Because we're not getting it done. So send the drones. I'm in. I'll donate for Pat to get a drone and get out there.
Exactly.
Two
awesome.
donations tonight.
I'd do it. I'm in.
All right.
What say you, Tyler?
I'd say the same thing. Send the drones, because like we've been doing the same shit over and over. So, sorry, I shouldn't have cussed. Sorry. But yeah, I've heard other other thoughts along this. They say thermal. They can't pick up Bigfoot because like they have like the cloaking, like natural or something like that. Like we've always, like we all said, we haven't personally seen one, so I can't jump into the ring of that, but I'm willing to listen. It's like this, okay, yeah, that's probably why we haven't seen one, or is it? At least try. It's like, I don't understand why everybody is so negative about trying something different. It makes no sense. Like, how did we get to this, like the way we live life now? We took chances, we tried different things. Like, can we not do that in the Sasquatch community? That's all I'm saying.
Shout out to the billions of our ancestors that died eating the wrong shit and getting killed by things that were bigger than them for us to be here tonight.
Very well said.
Yes.
Words of wisdom from the youth, from the mouth of babes. Tyler from the Kentucky X-Files summed it up. You guys have been great. Thank everybody who joined in the chat. Thank everybody for emailing. People have been chatting away. We really appreciate you guys being a part of the show. If you haven't hit that subscribe button on YouTube, please do that now. We're trying to get up to at least 1,000 subscribers. Would be awesome. I'd love to wake up to that in the morning. We're only about 89 or so away. So tell your friends about the show. You guys can get the show anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out the Paranormal Odyssey podcast as well. And if you're into true crime, I do a true crime show as well. You can check that out anywhere you get your podcast. Pat, Lesa, Tyler, Denny, thank you guys so much for being on the show. I've had a blast as always. I'm going to play this cool ass outro, and
yeah, I get to dance.
We'll see you guys next time.
They say